Our next presenter, and there he is. He is on screen. He is a former Belgium national time trial champion, professional cyclist. He understands minutely the importance of equipment and those equipment choices on rider performance. He is currently the Shimano European Sports Marketing Officer, and he is going to be talking to us about how being both a pro rider and now part of equipment innovation has given advantages to teams and manufacturers alike. I'm going to turn things over to Bert Roesems, who is tuning in from Brussels, Belgium. Over to you, Bert.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and also thank you, Chris, for already kicking off this webinar with some really interesting information. I'm going to share my screen because more or less I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and hope that that gets people interested and that they can also then fire some questions at me. And I would like to give them, as you said, more of a look behind the scenes. That's me. Like I said, I have a career, a background in sports, being a rider, professional rider myself, as you nicely introduced to me. And after my career, I made the switch to Shimano company. So more or less, I stayed within what for me was already a comfortable scene. I remained in the sport, but went more towards the business side. So I think I was going a little bit too fast. Go back. So I started cycling at the age of 16 years. Started out with competition, then joined the pro ranks in 1979. Had a number of different teams during all those years, going from more or less what you could call now an under 23 development team, then moving up to by the time was Pro Continental, and then ending the remain of most of my seasons with what is now Lotto Soudal team, which has World Tour level, and then did one more year to more or less get an idea what I wanted to do further in life, and that was 2009 was also my last season on Conti level. So I had a number of wins, among them also a number of individual time trials. So that is why maybe I was asked as one of the speakers today, which I am honored. Then after my sports career, I started at Shimano in 2010. So at Shimano Benelux, which is a sales office for Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Worked there for 2 years, then moved on to our headquarters for Europe, Shimano Europe BV in Eindhoven, where my current function is Sports Marketing Officer Road. So that's a little bit of a mouthful, but mainly I am in charge of our sponsored World Tour team. So being, maybe if you relate to how I started within Shimano as an account manager. So this you can consider also as, you manage the account of all the different sponsored teams we have on the World Tour level. So more or less, I am the go-between for Shimano. So go-between between the team and then our company. So more or less maybe be a little bit cocky or arrogant, say that everything has to pass through me. Not meaning that I handle everything, but I am the guy who checks the things out and then knows who needs to be involved from the company. And it can be, as I'm part of the marketing department, can be marketing related, but also can be product and technical related. So you see, back in the days, because I reached the age of 48 years now. So I go back maybe, and when I started out as a cyclist and with a preference for time trialing, material and testing were not already up to the level we see now, where more or less truly when you started out in smaller outfits, there was a more do-it-yourself approach where mostly the maximum effort of the team was trying to provide the rider with the right equipment, meaning that you had at least a time trial bike and then some specific wheels for time trialing, and then more or less all the rest was left to the rider. Then from a certain moment when you move on to other teams, where maybe budget gets a little bit more increased and it gets more important, then there is sometimes got the opportunity to do some wind tunnel testing, as you see at the picture in the middle. But like I said, that was more either an exception than something that was currently done. But even then, during those years, you saw when UCI introduced the World Tour series and the World Tour level, that time trialing became more important, because it became also with the way of racing became determined in for sure going for that Grand Tour win. So the rider that were also going good in the mountains need to be also very performant and efficient in time trialing, because that meant you had to save watts left and right, gain seconds left and right, and also try to be to get that number one spot in the overall classification. So nowadays, aero is everything. If you see how it all evolved through the years, some more illustrations where you see that position-wise we come from we made a big progress, because if you see that back in the day, more or less, it was the principle of slam down that front stem, try to be as low as possible. But with nowadays, with all the testing and that has been going on, we discovered that it is not about trying to get as low as possible, because it has to be about all your aerodynamic position and also about drag and so on. So, and then is why I made a small comparison. If you see maybe what would have been my best position back in the days on the left, and if you see where we get now with our current world record holder, that difference in positioning, that we come a long way. Also material-wise and also understanding, there is much more money spent, or much more budget spent on testing from team side, testing material, but also testing riders, testing the complete setup. That has become very, very important. Gaining data, collecting data for teams, also very important. Good. So that is more or less who I am. I think I have more to tell and more to share with you guys from experience than maybe from my PowerPoint.
Thank you, Bert, for that. That final picture you put up. That was Victor Kampernitz on the right side, I believe. Right. So Victor is the for those who don't know, he is the current 1 hour world record holder on the track. And the immediate question that comes to my mind when I think about that, Bert, is how much of Victor's extraordinary performance, when he did break the 1 hour record on the track, how much of that, I mean, you have to have an amazing, physical body and physiology to do that, but how much of the contribution to that record was the equipment choices that Victor and his team made to go into that record?
Yeah, I think you have to look at it at the whole picture. Naturally, equipment is very important, but also here we have a really special guy that maybe doesn't have the biggest engine in the peloton, but he has the capacity to make it all work. Like he's really dedicated, he's really motivated, and he picks whatever, either if it is science or experience, he picks the things that suits him the best. But I think for him, what the most important part of his success was that he was really able in making that complete formula to success by not only the physical part, but also how do you prepare all the training. A tremendous focus from him also, because I think he started more than 6 months before the attempt, already preparing for it, doing very specific training camps in altitude and stuff like that. It makes the overall also mindset with him was important. I think from the gun, he believed that he was able to do it, and then he managed to convince not only the team, not only the bike manufacturer and the material supplier, but also to gather around him a complete crew of people as dedicated as he was. Mm-hmm. And I think that was mainly the part of his success.
We just saw that the great time trialer from the UK, Alex Doucet, was going to make another attempt, and Alex has had several attempts at the world record, but unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, he was diagnosed positive with COVID-19. He was okay, but had to stop that attempt. So you mentioned that 6 month, and that sounds about right, Bert. But that there's a 6 month build up in terms of the training, but also I'm assuming a lot of testing as well in terms of equipment, positioning, on the track. How much of that time is dedicated to the equipment choices and the testing versus the training?
Yeah. So you always have to remember that, we are talking here about professional cyclists, so more or less, maybe not with Alex, but I think for sure with Victor, at a certain moment, you are, let's say, limited in choice of equipment, because you have, as a professional athlete, you are obliged to use certain brands, because you belong to a team. That team has contracts, so you have to work within certain boundaries. We are here talking about an effort on a track. So from component sponsor that Shimano is, where we mainly talk about gears and brake systems. Wheels are also very important, naturally, but for riding on the track, more or less, you just need a frame and a good pair of wheels to get the job done. So I think material testing was important, but also the testing of the complete. It was so meaning rider and bike, everything all together. That was important, and I think they spent some time doing it, which is normal, because we go for that attempt that they want to be successful. But I think the main part was like I said, putting all those pieces of the puzzle together and make it work.
Question from John Bennett. Bert, John would like to know, has Shimano conducted any wind tunnel tests on their components to determine any marginal gains?
Yes, but like I said, for us, we are a component sponsor, so it's always a little bit difficult in that sense. That we're only a part. We're of the bike. We are an accessory. So, for example, when we test our wheels, so it's always in a fixed setup. It's a kind of jig. So we don't do testing with complete bikes because we have. Yeah, mainly all the brands are our competitors. So we have to make when we test, we have to create for ourselves a kind of baseline, so that we have something where you can compare in a certain sense. So the best then is to just put mainly for the wheels up in a fixed jig. Not use bikes, because that's more or less the way we see it. That is when we deliver our products to the teams, then it's their job to test with the complete setup, bike and rider, because that is for them also lies their interest. For sure, we test also our components. I don't think it's kicking in an open door when I say that we are working on new Dura-Ace group set, where also the aerodynamics, not only ergonomics is important, but also aerodynamics of the parts. And that information we get through that close cooperation with the teams, where we get the feedback when they do the testing. So being a technology company and being also a Japanese company, you cannot make us more happy than providing us with detailed in-house testing from the teams, because they work with their own bike supplier, that bike supplier also has their own testing done, development done, and also their own ideas how they should make a good product.
Question from John Wiggins, and we'll be hearing from John Wiggins' presentation coming up once we're wrapped up with Bert. John is interested to know, you were one of the first top riders to use a power meter with your training and your racing, Bert. How important was that feedback that you received from the power meter for your training?
Yeah, so to maybe start from the beginning. So I come from an era when training was mainly still done with heart rate. But as most of us here know that, heart rate is more, you measure the effect of what you are doing. You're not really measuring your effort. And in looking and being also, how would I say it? Not the most explosive type of rider. Being also a rider where threshold and maximum heart rate were lying really close together. So then working with heart rate was for me a difficult one to train the different aspects that you need to train, because like I said, with heart rate you measure the reaction of your body on what you are doing, and in that sense, when I was looking for an extra training tool, so the power meter was important, but also more important, because the power meter is a scientific tool, but also you need to closely work with somebody that knows power, knows training, that you can put all those things together in a smart training program. So it's not only owning a power meter, that's only the beginning. Then you need to do the work, and you need to work with somebody who has the knowledge. And that is where John and I and myself came together then, because I was looking for buying one. Like I said, buying the power meter was one thing, but also getting involved with people who know the science behind. I think that is even more important than like I said, everybody can go out to nowadays and buy a power meter. But if you only can just read the numbers and say, okay, now I'm pushing 300 watts or now I'm pushing 600 watts, the only thing you know then that it hurts a little bit more when you're doing 600 watts than when you're doing 300 watts. But how you have to implement it in your daily training. And like I said, what you don't have with heart rate, but you do have when you measure power, is that this is under most circumstances, like 1 watt is 1 watt, where if you're talking about heart rate, 150 heart rate a minute doesn't always get you the same, either the same speed or the same performance, because it is depending on that many things. If your body is well rested, do you carry still some fatigue? Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you have some emotional stress? That are things that have an effect on your heart, can have an effect on your heart rate, where when you use power measurement, more or less you have a really objective value.
That was a great answer, and certainly the power meter is becoming more and more prevalent. I was just noting some sort of industry and trade deals in the last couple of weeks. The Canadian-based power meter company 4i had struck deals with both Canyon and Cervelo to start to include as standard equipment when you buy the bike OEM now a 4i power meter. So it's sort of become the standard now, Bert, that like people are getting bikes that have power meters on them, and as you had said, right out of the box, training with power.
Yeah, like I said, you see normally if you look at the consumer, so does a consumer want on his bike, or what kind of bike does he want? It's like what he sees on television, what he sees, what the pros are riding. Either if you're riding on the road or off road, so that is also there for them. A trigger, and like I said, although we do a lot of development, foremost we are also a commercial company, so that we have to make sure that we can link those things together. But you see that also not only for the high level athlete, but last couple of years, you see that there is also an interest for the general public to start working with power measurement. More and more, we live in a digital world, and I think for those who are into that, power meter is really a nice accessory to have on the bike.
Second question from John Wiggins, and it has to do with the crossover, Bert, between the road and the track, and what benefits the other. And John is asking, did track to road help you to develop further as a rider for classics performance, like single day classics performance, and time trial specific? So what is that aid that the track gives you to racing and riding on the road in the time trial or single day classics specifically?
Yeah, when you see that, the workload or the way you train to get performances on the track, it is much more structured. As a rider, you also get much more involved. You go more in depth. You learn more. You get more understanding on why you have to do maybe certain things during training, why certain efforts, while maybe talking about my career, so meaning not talking about the guys who are currently road professionals, but that by that time still more of the training was done because somebody said that maybe that was the way to go, or often because things were already been done for many years in a similar way. So it was more about you following a kind of flow, following a general idea, while training on the track. You have that your training is much more structured, and you have much more insight as a rider, or you learn to get that insight on why you have to train certain specifics.
What's it like for you, Bert, at a Grand Tour? You must be a really busy man with Shimano sponsoring so many of the World Tour teams. That must be a very busy and hectic 3 weeks for you.
Yeah. So we visit a lot of races, not because doesn't mean that is the only thing we do. That is like more of an effect from the work we do, a consequence. Because we see when we go to a race, for us it's an opportunity to see a lot of the people we work with at the same time. The way we work, for example, when more or less all of the Doucet group set has a 4-year lifespan. So meaning more or less every 4 years we come with a new generation of Doucet components. During those visits, 2 teams can be at the races, can also be at training camps. We collect a lot of feedback we get from the riders, but also feedback we get from the science department. Okay, to get the feedback from the science department, I know we don't need to visit the races. So visiting the races is a kind of perk for us. So that feedback that is collected is more or less centralized in Japan with our R&D department, and a lot of those things are taken into consideration for the development of the new components. And it can, like I said, it can be on different levels. It can be about augmenting the ergonomics, but it can also be, for example, we know now for many years that our Doucet Di2 front derailleur is more or less a black spot when you go to wind tunnel testing. And that is why also then efforts are made to even minimalize it and make it more aerodynamic.
Interesting. More questions coming in from the attendees. Thank you, John Bennett, for your awesome questions. Question for you, Bert. How much wind tunnel time did you do in your career? That's first part. And then the second part, how did the gains transfer to riding on the road? Some riders see gains up to 20 watts in the wind tunnel testing, but those don't transfer to actual gains on the road.
Yeah, so well, I can be really brief. The picture you saw from me in the wind tunnel was the first and only time I went to the wind tunnel. It was more of kind of a privilege from the university and also let me say the company owning that wind tunnel. It was in the region of Brussels. It was in the von Karman Institute, where they also wanted to test some things themselves. So we did some work that was also beneficial to the study they were doing, and it was less destined for individual performance and individual improvements. So we did also some work where you had like 2 riders in the wind tunnel, one behind the other on positioning, that kind of stuff, how it relates to riding in a peloton, how do it relates on the drafting and that kind of stuff. And how it comes that sometimes people get good results in a wind tunnel, but don't seem to get that results translated to the road, so to the actual performance and real life conditions. It's the body has to be able to sustain that certain position for a certain period, so you can be put really aero on the bike, but more or less in wind tunnels it's from a position where you are sitting still, you're not really moving, they just pass that flow of air over you, but then when you go out on the road you have to perform, so biomechanically you have to still be able to produce all those watts.
Comment on that saying you have written on the wall behind you. Yes.
Yeah, I see it.
Life.
I see it.
Why don't you give us the translation, Bert?
Yeah,
what does it mean?
Don't dream your life, live your dream. So maybe you don't see the whole text, but it's in Spanish.
There we go.
Yeah. Because when you introduced me, you said I was in Brussels, but I'm actually in Spain, so trying to enjoy a little bit. Doing some work and also try to enjoy a little bit the little bit of sunshine we have here in the Alicante region. So I'm between Valencia and Alicante now for the moment. Which that kind of weather for the moment we don't have in Brussels, Steve.
Right. This is obviously an unusual year, Bert, with COVID-19, the pandemic, and the travel restrictions and lockdowns and shutdowns. But normally, this time of the year is when teams typically have that first training camp, together in December or early in January, and the riders are all gathering, and there's, new riders, coming onto a team, changes in bike, changes in components, maybe going from one brand of kit supplier to another. What is your role, or what is the supplier's role, in that when those riders are gathering for the first time, in terms of helping them, educating them, the team and the riders, and also getting that feedback you mentioned about. I'm sure this is an important time of the year to get, there's not the pressure of the racing season upon us yet. So this, I'm guessing, is perhaps an important time for gathering that information that you were talking about.
Yeah. And I want to pick on what you said about educating. That is what we did also last winter when we visited. We tried to visit as almost all our sponsored teams, where we made dedicated presentations, for the technical staff to know the ins and outs and everything you need to know about our Dura-Ace components. But then also we made a more hands-on one for the riders, where we try to educate them on getting some basic understanding about certain features you have within a Di2 group set. Also just some troubleshooting also to make them aware of the fact that maybe they don't always need to lose those minutes waiting for the team car, where there are some small tips and tricks they can do themselves to get up and running again, and that stuff that doesn't leave them on the side of the road waiting for a car. And then also we have that really technical training which we offer to the teams, where we just come in and tell them how you need to service our products, how you have to install them on the bike, and that kind of thing. So we have we try to pass along as much knowledge as possible. So for us, it's not that all that information needs to be freely available to the teams, to the riders, to the scientists from the teams, and to also the technicians working on the bikes. And that is also a great part of our job. And by doing so, we also get a lot of that feedback. Sometimes it comes from the riders who says, for me, I would prefer if I could do this or that with the bike, why a certain button is positioned where it is. And sometimes also from the technical staff, where they just say, these are the problems we get. We see on a daily basis.
Noticed that during the Grand Tours this year, Tour de France in particular, the commentators were talking about this quite a bit, because it was very noticeable. Is the two strongest teams, Ineos Grenadiers and Jumbo-Visma, were opting to run rim brakes still on the bikes versus pretty much everyone else running disc brakes. Why was that, and will we potentially see that change next year?
It's really just I can be really brief. It's just a weight issue for them. Unfortunately, and it's not that the bike supplier doesn't know how to make a good bike, but they don't get their disc brake bikes down to that 6.8 kilo magic mark, where naturally all those general classification riders want to be. Because for them it is in their mindset, and we can understand them. They are saying, okay, I'm working my butt off all year long, maybe sometimes to even lose a little bit of body weight, 200 grams here, 50 grams there, and then I would be handed over a bike that is 7.5 kilos. So yeah, if the rider's in his mind, if his body needs to be on that same high level, then also the material needs to be. And that is why it's not a question that they don't believe in disc brakes, in the technology or whatever. For them, it's just really a performance issue. And because also, they more or less don't have a big issue with rim brakes. For them, because they have been used to riding them up until now, and for them, the performance of the rim brake is suitable, and then in combination with the bike being as close to 6.8 as possible, that is why you saw that Ineos and Jumbo-Visma still rode rim brakes.
The commentators were also saying, Bert, that it had something to do with the ease of and the quickness of a wheel change, that the riders could make a change themselves, easier, like a domestique rider, support rider could get a wheel to the GC, the team leader, quicker versus the through axle change over.
Okay, we did some tests when we introduced or when disc brakes were introduced into road racing, and it's really a game of seconds when you get the hang of it, changing wheels. But also then it doesn't work for domestiques. But we also said from the beginning, when we distinguish two types of wheel swaps or bike swaps. The one where you say, okay, more or less quantitative, where you have all the time in the world, because the racing is not on yet, or it's at the time when it is still quiet in the bunch. Then you can take all the time to swap wheels. But often you see when you get into the final where we are going for that result, and when time is of an issue, then the teams already did that. Even when they are still on rim brakes, that they don't give a wheel anymore. They just hand their leader a bike from the roof. Mm-hmm. So then why would you not adopt that same kind of method for disc brakes? Then what you also have been doing already since long time, and also in time trials, where you see when something happens, they give you your spare bike instead of trying to change wheels, because that is the fastest way.
I was noticing that the team cars seem to be carrying more bikes on the roof, and these are for the teams that had disc brake options for the riders, and literally that's what was happening. You just see the mechanic jump out of the car and get a fresh new bike off the roof, hand it off, and done.
Yeah, and you see more or less the teams where that was more or less at the same moment. When teams were asking, okay, how should we do then? Because do we need to pack more bikes on the roof? And then by that time you had Team Sunweb. I think they had Mini Cooper as their team car, so they had more or less the smallest car in the peloton, but they had 9 bikes on the roof. So and now you see that mostly. All the teams have 9 bikes on the roof.
And I noticed the mechanics, when they jump out, they're using a driver for the through axles to get that off like super quickly, as opposed to just using the hex the hex wrench. So when I saw them doing the wheel change with the disc wheels, and they used the mechanical power battery charged driver, it went really quickly. It was about the same time as you would be for a rim brake change.
Yeah, and you know that road cycling is a little bit of a conservative environment. So when changes come in many forms, it can be, then mostly the first reaction is from road racing scene is, why cannot we keep it the way we did it or the way we are used to it, instead of maybe thinking how we can adapt now to the new situation. And we need to have on road racing a little bit more that let's think out of the box mentality.
Final question, and then we're going to go to coffee break. Last question to Bert, and then we'll take a half-hour coffee break for those wherever you may be around the world. Final question to you, Bert, coming again from John Wiggins, and it's about CRR rolling resistance. CRR rolling resistance is massive now in aerodynamics. How are teams transitioning to the wider rims and wider tubeless tire options that are being put up now? And how does that relate to tire pressures?
Yeah, you saw that, in last couple of years, we went from 21 millimeter rims to what is now the standard is like 28 millimeter rims. And also, the debate is ongoing for tubeless tires because there is from the riders, like I said, road cycling is pretty conservative. They are a little bit weary about safety, meaning that, if you go down a descent, when you puncture, we know that tubulars, they will, because they are glued to the rim, will stick better or more or longer to the rim, while what we will do if a tubeless tire flicks off the rim. So that is a little bit the feedback or the general comment we get from the riders. On the other hand, when you talk to the science department of the teams, you see that they are working on on tubeless tires and those rims, and mainly for everything what is time trial related, because there you can control the environment better. You also don't have that maybe those long descents going down a huge mountain climb. So and also, like I said, because it's a professional world, and they have contracts with different suppliers. That also it depends on which tire brand you use, and on where they are with their innovations in everything related to tubeless tires.
Fantastic. And that brings to a conclusion our time with Bert. A virtual round of applause, if you please, for Bert Roesems. Thank you, Bert.
Thank you.
They are clapping. I can hear them in the background loudly from all over the world.